Star Wars. Now, most of you thought about the franchise as a whole when I said that. But, for the time, it was just the name of one film. Most people don't know this, but the original film was just called Star Wars. In fact, it wasn't until 1981, after Empire released, that the subtitle A New Hope and Episode 4 was added to the crawl. Hello everyone, and as you may know, I am a massive movie and TV nerd. And most of those movies and shows wouldn't exist without this one. So, to celebrate this fact, I thought I would review the film that started it all. But before we get into the movie, I think it's best that you get some background information about it. And no, I'm not going to cover everything. You can research it in your own time. The idea from Star Wars is a combination of a few things, but here are the main ones. The old Flash Gordon serials, Seven Samurai, and Westerns were a big part of George Lucas's childhood, and thus were some major influences on this movie. So, after 4 years of writing and many different versions, he had finally written the script for Star Wars. No, we're not quite at the movie yet, because writing a movie is one thing, but getting it made is a completely different thing. Now, Lucas isn't exactly one to change his mind, so in order to avoid studio meddling, that would mean he would have to make the movie himself. Now, while his creative vision is good now, in the future it may cause some problems. After a while, Lucas was finally able to find a studio that would be willing to put the movie out to distribution. That studio was 20th Century Fox, and Lucas was able to ensure that he got to make the movie he wanted, keep the rights, including toys, which we'll talk more about when we get to Empire. So, after a while, he was finally able to make the movie, and it was then released in 1977. Let's get into it. The film starts with an opening crawl. During it, we learn that the galaxy is ruled by the Empire. They have built a planet-destroying weapon called the Death Star that has basically got a self-destruct button.
Indestructible, like 99.99%.
Okay, wouldn't be doing my job if I didn't ask what's the .01.
Well, I mean, there's this little hole. It was kind of an aesthetic choice by the architect, and if you shoot a laser into this hole, the station blows up.
Whoa, that sounds like a pretty big design flaw there.
No.
We also learn that the plans for the Death Star are in the hands of Princess Leia, who is currently being chased by the Empire. After the crawl, we then get one of the best opening shots ever as we see a massive Star Destroyer chasing a small rebel ship. We then meet our protagonists for the first stretch of the movie, R2-D2 and C-3PO. We see them running around the ship as the rebels are fighting off the stormtroopers, and as they leave, we get one of those badass introductions for one of, if not the most badass villain, Darth Vader. We then see the stormtroopers and Vader looking for Leia as C-3PO looks for R2. C-3PO then finds R2 as he sees Leia is bent over him. They then get attacked and we see the only instance of stun mode on blasters in live action. R2 and C-3PO then get an escape pod, and thanks to some of the dumbest Imperial officers in all of Star Wars, they are able to get away.
Hold your fire. There's no life forms. It must have short-circuited.
Like, have they never encountered droids in their entire life? They are very common in this universe. I'm not joking when I say I genuinely believe if it wasn't for these two dumbasses, everything that happens after this point would not happen. Anyways, after some wandering around in the desert of Tatooine, they get captured by Jawas and sold to Owen Lars, who also happens to be the uncle of an oddly whiny in the scene Luke Skywalker, our actual protagonist.
Cleaned up for dinner.
But I was going into Toshi Station to pick up some power converters.
Luke starts cleaning R2 before R2 plays a message from Leia addressed to an Obi-Wan Kenobi. Luke then calls Leia beautiful, which in retrospect is very gross, and he then goes outside where we get one of my favorite scenes ever. Anyways, R2 escapes, and a few funky transitions later and the next day, Luke and C-3PO are looking for them. He then finds them with some Tusken Raiders, and Luke is then captured by them before being saved by Ben Kenobi, who makes a noise to scare the Raiders off. Just don't ask what it is, because there are 3 different answers. We then learn that Ben is indeed Obi-Wan, and that he is either needlessly lying, or those 2 sons have done more damage to him than rapid aging, because he claims he doesn't own R2, and that he has never owned a droid. And to that I say, what about O4, Obi-Wan? What about R4? We then go to Obi-Wan's hut, and Luke gets one of the best weapons ever.
Lightsaber. This is the weapon of a Jedi Knight. Not as clumsy or random as a blaster. An elegant weapon for a more civilized age.
They then watch the rest of Leia's message and learn that Obi-Wan helped Leia's father in something called the Clone Wars, along with Luke's father. And while technically she is right, she doesn't know why yet. Anyways, through some awkward editing, we then see Obi-Wan offer to train Luke. He says no, and goes home to live a perfectly normal life where nothing weird happens. Or not. I would like to remind you, this is all a PG movie. Man, I miss the 70s. Luke burns what's left of his aunt and uncle's stuff and goes with Obi-Wan where they look for a pilot. After some searching and some random droid racism, they meet Han Solo. He's Captain of the Millennium Falcon.
Han Solo. I'm Captain of the Millennium Falcon.
You know, the ship that made the Kessel Run in 12 parsecs, even though that's a measurement of distance, not time. We then see Han get cornered by this alien named Greedo, and one of them shoots first. Again, don't ask who, but it doesn't matter, and by the end, Greedo is dead. Anyways, after some more scenes of our heroes murdering more innocent stormtroopers, they are then able to escape Tatooine. We then see Luke practicing with his lightsaber blindfolded, and then we learn that Han doesn't believe in the Force.
Luck. In my experience, there's no such thing as luck.
Look, good against remotes is one thing. Good against the living, that's something else.
We then see Leia being brought to be asked questions by Admiral Tarkin, mainly where the rebel base is. She doesn't answer, so they blow up Alderaan. Obi-Wan then feels a great disturbance in the Force, and the group then gets to where Alderaan was, and see it is gone, and they then get captured by the Death Star. Luke and Han get some stormtrooper armor, and Obi-Wan goes to disable the tractor beam. Along the way, they learn that Leia is aboard, and they go to save her. We then get some random Wookiee racism.
You taking this thing?
Han does some improv.
Everything's under control. Situation normal.
What happened?
Had a slight weapons malfunction, but everything's perfectly all right now. We're fine. We're all fine here now. Thank you. How are you?
Luke goes to save Leia, only to get insulted.
A little short for a stormtrooper.
They then run into a trash compactor to then be saved by C-3PO. And as they all start to leave, Obi-Wan meets Vader, or Darth as he for some reason calls him.
Only a master of evil, Darth.
Luke then shows up and sees Vader kill Obi-Wan right in front of him. As they're escaping, Luke and Han kill more innocent people just doing their jobs. The group makes it to Yavin 4, the home base of the rebels, where they then get a briefing over the plans of the Death Star and how to destroy it. Then, despite having no experience, Luke is allowed to fly an X-Wing on the most dangerous mission ever. We then get what is basically just the Empire destroying the rebels as the Death Star gets closer and closer to Yavin 4. And all hope seems to be lost until we get to the trench run. After nearly everyone else is dead, it is up to Luke to destroy the Death Star, but he is then being targeted by Darth Vader. Vader nearly kills Luke, but Han then shows up and is able to blast them away, allowing Luke to then use the Force and blow up the Death Star. Our heroes all reunite and rejoice in their act of terrorism and mass murder. We then get a ceremony scene where Luke and Han then get medals. And only them. Yeah, I know everyone knows about Chewie not getting a medal, but why does no one talk about R2 not getting a medal? He's the one who carried the plans, and he actually got shot. But whatever. We then get amazing John Williams music, Leia I fucks Han. Our characters turn around and look at the crowd that is definitely not half cardboard, and we then roll to credits. So, that was Star Wars. While I got a few nitpicks out of the way during the recap, now I'm going to go into my actual thoughts. So, I'm not going to stall. I think this is a perfect movie. Yes, it has flaws, and some of you might be saying, well, that means it's not a perfect movie. But I disagree, because I don't think a perfect movie is a movie with no flaws. Because if that was what a perfect movie was, there would be no perfect movies. To me, a perfect movie is where everything, flaws and all, add to the experience. A movie where, without those flaws, it would be a completely different experience entirely. Which leads us into the special edition. Now you may have noticed that aside from a few jokes here and there, I didn't really talk about the special edition scenes because I was saving them for here. Now, I know most of you know, but for the 3 people who are watching this video and don't know, in order to build hype for The Phantom Menace, and well, to just make more money, George re-released the first 3 films in 1997, with some changes, which I will go over by talking about the good, the bad, and the I don't care, starting with the bad. The biggest problem with this version is the Jabba scene. This takes away not only from this film, but the third as well. In the original versions, you get the first 2 movies hearing about Jabba, but you go the whole time wondering who he is, and then in return you finally see him and you learn he's a big slug thing. But here, you just see him, no build up, adds nothing to the experience. You learn no new information from the scene. You learn everything you need to know in this film and in Empire without this scene. And Jabba isn't the only one whose introduction is made worse, because someone else is in the scene. Boba Fett. Instead of his original introduction scene where Vader assembles the best bounty hunters, and we learn that Boba likes to disintegrate people, instead, he is just a background character. Now, the next bad thing is the whole who shot first thing. For those who don't know, in the original version, Han shoots Greedo point blank. In the special edition, Greedo shoots. Han breaks his neck at light speed and then shoots. And now they basically shoot at the same time. Now, George has given reasons for this change, but either way, it's pointless. Most people don't even notice Greedo shooting, so he didn't even accomplish whatever it was he was trying to accomplish. Well, the first good one that comes to mind is Luke reuniting with Biggs. In the original, we don't meet him, but Luke's reaction to his death is kept in. But now the scene is back. It doesn't change much or hurt the flow like Jabba's scene, and it gives more emotional attachment. I also like changing of the cardboard cutouts in the ceremony scene. I like Han running into a bunch of stormtroopers on the Death Star. I didn't really talk about the scene, but in the special edition, it's way funnier. Now for the I don't care, I have everything else. Yeah, I won't go over it all because, well, either I don't care or haven't noticed. This could be due to like everyone born after 1997 having the special editions be the first version I saw, and probably is, but either way, this segment is long enough. So that's all I have to say about the special editions, aside from this. They could have been way worse. Now, as I mentioned, it takes a while before we meet Luke, and that's because it wasn't supposed to be. In the original cut, we see Luke and Biggs watching the battle from Tatooine, and then Biggs leaves to join the rebellion. But there's a problem with these scenes. They suck. And George and his wife knew this, so they cut them, and to this day they haven't been added back in. Thank God. Another thing I joke about is the rebels, and how they are terrorists, because, well, they kind of are. Obviously, we don't see them that way because we see it from their perspective and know all the behind-the-scenes stuff, but think about it from the point of view of a stormtrooper. You spend your whole life learning about the traitors that the Jedi were and how the Emperor survived their attack and stopped them and ended their clone wars. And life is pretty good for you and most others. You join the military and then have to deal with these people who are trying to destroy the Empire and kill you and your friends. So you get assigned aboard the Death Star, a space station meant to destroy these terrorists trying to call themselves rebels and frame themselves as the heroes. And the Death Star will be able to destroy them and their bases and other planets trying to destroy the Empire. So, when we capture one of their leaders and they refuse to help us, of course it's fine to destroy the planet. After all, she is Princess Leia. Princess, meaning her dad is a king. So if the princess thinks this way, the king probably does too. And probably so does the whole planet. And then, when you are finally about to destroy the rebels once and for all, at the end of the fighting, some farmer made a lucky shot and killed you. So now you can see how the rebels can kind of be the bad guys from the stormtroopers' perspective, and how the stormtroopers aren't that bad. I'm not defending the Emperor or other high-ranking officials. I'm just saying, if we can be fine with Vader killing one person and then acting like everything bad he did doesn't matter anymore, maybe we can think about the stormtroopers our heroes killed and celebrated doing. So, that's my thoughts on the film. And yeah, I know that was a weird spot to end on. But, well, you see, I don't care. Time to give it a score. 1 is god-awful, 2 is very bad, 3 is boring, 4 is below average, 5 is average, 6 is above average, 7 is good, 8 is great, 9 is amazing, 10 is perfect, and based on a previous rant I gave, I bet you can guess what I think this movie is. It's a 10 out of 10. If you're an idiot and you couldn't guess it. So, that's it. Goodbye.